elements vital for what we think of as a modern digital computer. Elements of electronics, logic, memory, and binary arithmetic, counting in twos rather than tens. Sometime during the 1970s, an elderly man visited me. I was director of the computer center at the time and involved in the program, and told me that he was, in fact, the inventor of the computer. Well, he gave me his card. Unfortunately, I lost his card. But I just asked his son whether or not this was possible just a moment ago. And indeed, it may well have been possible that I snubbed this gentleman, and it'll be to my everlasting shame that I did. That is the case. However, perhaps this event in his memory may partially compensate for that. Thank you very much. A great friend of mine sitting down here is going to get up and speak to you soon, Charlie Holbrow. Oh dear, there were so many things to say about Charlie. He is a unique individual. He and Mary have been part of our lives in many ways for a very, very long period of time. He has a family of half a dozen beautiful girls. Five, it's only five. Okay. Well, I always work with the approximation of it. And of course, very, very close friends with our own children. And so we related as families with children, we related in church, and we related as colleagues in the various science departments. And we related very much in the development of computers in Korea. So,
Thank you, Tom. I feel like I got off easy. So since we're this moment, a friend is going to do an introduction for it. But it is a wonderful occasion, and I'm glad to be here for it. I'm going to do something. Jack gave me a task, which I think is an extremely difficult task, but I'm going to try and do it, which is the difficult task for a professor, which is to say a few words. But it is an occasion, I think, which marks an event that has affected all our lives in a tremendously significant way. You know, I look at my children and my grandchildren, and two-thirds of them are doing something directly with computers, and of course we're all doing something indirectly with computers. It is just everywhere in our lives. You carry in your pockets, most of you, a device which we couldn't even dream of in 1967 or 69 when we were starting the computer center. The technology just runs on at a pace, and I think it's a wonderful connection to find that we in Hamilton, New York, had this incipient connection to the originator of this device, you know, of all these devices that so spread across our world. My father was born in 1899, so really 3 centuries ago. But on his 70th birthday, which of course would have been 1969, I wrote him a letter in which I was saying, you know, Dad, you were born 4 years before the Wrights flew the first heavier-than-air craft, and this summer, shortly before your birthday, men were walking on the moon. I mean, there is a kind of technology race that sweeps your breath away, and here we have another. I was born in 1935. John Atanasoff was propounding these 4 principles 3 or 4 years later, and today we are in this network of computation and wires that is just extraordinary. No wonder many of us suffer from what technology overload, and it hasn't been that different in the early parts of the history. It's almost a profound characteristic of America. I mean, my grandfather was born in 1865. I don't know when my great-grandfather was born, but it was back around 1810. So you have the steam engine, you have the railroads, you have this accelerating burst of technology, which we're still gasping with. It changes our lives, it changes the lives of our ancestors and our progeny and posterity. I don't know where it's going to go. I love it, actually, but it's not everybody's taste. But I think this is an occasion that just brings that to mind in a way that I think it's worth having, to find that, and I have to love the fact that, Colgate, not Colgate, but Hamilton, where a lot of people think of themselves as living in the middle of nowhere out in the country, a place which I dearly love to live, turns out to have this connection to this immensely energetic force of technology that is sweeping us ahead. We are, as we often say, centrally located. And in fact, there is a truth. My wife, doing some research not too many years ago, pointed out that the Baptists, in deciding to put Colgate in Hamilton, were offered the choice of putting it in Rochester, or at the time, so this is a long time ago, and they decided, no, Hamilton, because it's more centrally located. So you see, we have that benefit. We are centrally located geographically, and it turns out now we're centrally located in the history of the technology here. And I'm just delighted that we're going to hear more about it today.
Is it green up there? Is it?
No,
like
it's
green?
not. You gotta hold it.
Hold it longer?
Yeah, it'll turn on. There you go.
Okay.
That makes sense. So now the issue on the computer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Henry Marshall. I'm working through Colgate University's Upstate Institute, doing research this summer with the Madison County Clerk and the town of Hamilton. Now, I began a few weeks ago, and I was tasked with researching and finding evidence on the father of the computer, which I was just so astounded to learn that he was in fact born in Hamilton. So, as everyone knows, and just kind of to recap the history, when John Atanasoff's father immigrated in 1889, he was Ivan Atanasoff and changed his name to John. And him and his wife, Ivan Purdy, married in 1900, and shortly after, John Atanasoff was born. Now, my first clue or starting point with my research was a property description for the route for properties on Route 12D, right behind Colgate, to see if I could locate this name Purdy, the spouse of John Atanasoff. Now, I began by looking at these property descriptions for 12B, and then I made a visit to the Madison County Clerk's office looking for the name Danmouth Purdy, which is the father. Now, after that, I saw the properties on Preston Hill Road, and by searching the name in the property deeds, I turned up the name Floyd and Manmouth Purdy, in fact, owning properties between 1900 and 1904. For further proof, I looked at the grantee and grantor files to confirm the names, which did match, and I then looked more into these deeds. Now, with this information and the property description that I found in these deeds with the Purdy name, which does connect and provides significant evidence linking Atanasoff's birth behind Colgate in the town of Hamilton, the property description in the deeds did say Eaton, which does not disprove that he lived in Hamilton. What this does mean is that they may have been receiving their mail in Eaton, and still leaves the possibility of his birth on Preston Hill Road much open. Now I'm going to keep this brief because we all want to hear the main speaker, but what I've learned so far is that this is not only a short project, but more and more evidence keeps turning up. And when we looked at local newspapers for Purdy, who was a preacher at the time, the presence of the Purdys in the area is definitely significant. And at this point, it's definitely a learning process, and the more and more that I research into it, the more and more that the evidence seems that he in fact was born on Preston Hill Road.
Oh, good.
He's still looking, so we're gonna find out exactly where it is someday, right? A couple years ago, I had this funny phone call from Ray McIntyre. He was from Lake Placid, and he said he had just met the new principal there, Brian. And he